It started with a single scroll, a quiet thumb moving down a glowing screen. The world was loud that night, headlines flashing like lightning in a storm you couldn't escape. You told yourself it was just to check the news, just to stay informed. But the noise didn't fade. It grew. Every refresh brought a new disaster, a new argument, a new reason to keep your eyes open when the rest of the world was asleep. The screen became a portal, pulling you deeper into a space where chaos never sleeps. Somewhere between curiosity and fear, you stopped scrolling for information and started scrolling for survival. Just one more post. You whispered, "I need to stay updated." But each swipe was a step further from peace. The soft blue light wrapped around you like a web, and the silence of the room turned heavy. You didn't notice when night turned into dawn or when the real world, the one outside your feed, went quiet. What if the danger wasn't in what you were reading, but in how you were reading it? Millions of people were doing the same thing, caught in the same loop, trying to feel in control by staring into the storm. And the deeper you scrolled, the less control you had. Your brain isn't built for this kind of chaos, and it's starting to show. Each swipe delivers a tiny hit of something your mind mistakes for importance, for connection, for relevance. But it's not information, it's adrenaline. It's cortisol flooding your bloodstream, tricking your body into thinking you're under attack. It's the cortisol, says the calm voice of psychologists in your mind. That's the hormone that keeps you scrolling. You laugh nervously. It sounds ridiculous until you realize you can feel it. The tension in your shoulders, the shallow breathing, the constant urge to check your phone again. Your brain learns what feels rewarding, and the algorithm learns what keeps you hooked. Together, they form a silent pact. You provide attention, it provides stimulation. But every small burst of dopamine comes paired with fear, outrage, or sadness, emotional junk food that leaves you emptier each time. You tell yourself it's about being informed, but the truth is, it's about feeling something when everything feels numb. And yet, the more you feed that craving, the more hollow it gets. Doomscrolling gives you the illusion of control, but in reality, it's the perfect cycle of helplessness. By month 6, the world outside your phone feels quieter, but somehow more terrifying. Every headline vibrates with urgency. Every image looks like proof that humanity's falling apart. You start feeling the weight of things you can't touch, can't fix, can't stop watching. Sleep becomes a distant memory. Nights stretch longer. Mornings start later. You startle at the smallest sounds. Why can't I stop? You wonder. The feed never says enough. It just says, here's what you missed. Friends notice the shift. You've been quiet lately, one says gently. You nod, pretending to listen, but your mind is already elsewhere, replaying a video, recalling a headline, scanning invisible data behind your eyelids. It's not the world that's broken. It's your sense of safety. Your brain, overwhelmed by endless threats, can't tell the difference between a tweet and a tiger. The anxiety seeps into everything. You don't trust people. You don't trust news. Eventually, you don't even trust yourself. The breaking point comes quietly. One night, staring into your reflection on the dark phone screen, you realize you become part of the noise. You think you're choosing what to see, but the feed already knows what you'll click next. It's not random, it's engineered. The algorithm watches, listens, learns. It knows your fears better than your friends do. It remembers every second you pause, every story that makes you angry. We notice you like bad news. It whispers silently. Here's more. It's not manipulation. It's personalization, weaponized. The more you scroll, the sharper its aim. The machine has no malice, only hunger. Your attention is its fuel. Behind the screen, engineers tweak numbers, test emotions, perfect the hooks that keep you online. It's not personal, it's business. The longer you stay, the more valuable you become. But something inside you begins to shift. You start wondering, if your attention is being shaped by invisible code, who are you when you're not looking? For the first time, you see the pattern, and it sees you seeing it. That's when the illusion cracks. When every headline feels like the end of the world, how do you know what's real anymore? Your perception isn't collapsing. It's being edited. Somewhere between panic and apathy, you stop reacting. Nothing shocks you. Nothing moves you. You scroll past disasters, past grief, past joy, like someone skipping through a movie they've seen too many times. Was it real? You ask yourself. Did that even happen? The question echoes unanswered. Your mind grows quieter, not in peace but in exhaustion. You find yourself staring at the phone without reading, thumb hovering like a broken metronome. The world feels far away, as if wrapped in glass. The same stories loop. The same arguments repeat. The world burns, rebuilds, burns again, and you're just watching detached, numb. It's not that you don't care anymore. It's that you've cared too much for too long, with nowhere to put the pain. Then, one morning, you don't open your phone. You just sit. The air feels heavier, real. The sunlight feels almost too bright. You notice the hum of the fridge, the warmth of your coffee, the sound of your own breathing. Maybe I don't need to know everything. You whisper. The thought feels foreign, but freeing. The silence that used to feel uncomfortable now feels like oxygen. Your brain, slowly starved of chaos, starts to remember calm. The anxiety doesn't vanish overnight, but for the first time in months, it isn't steering the wheel. You step outside and realize how much you've missed. The smell of rain, the laughter of someone walking by, a stranger's smile not filtered through pixels. You look lighter, a friend says, surprised. You smile back, and it's genuine. The world hasn't changed, but your attention has. Every day becomes a small act of rebellion, choosing to see, not scroll. The world didn't change, but your mind finally did. You begin to understand that freedom isn't deleting an app. It's reclaiming what you give your attention to. The storms will keep raging online. The arguments will never end, but your peace no longer depends on them. You survived your own mind storm, and now you see the sky again. Somewhere, someone else is still scrolling, chasing the same ghost of certainty you once did. Maybe they need a reminder that silence isn't emptiness, it's recovery. Maybe that's why you're here, to pass it on. Because when you stop doom scrolling, the world doesn't stop moving. It just finally starts to make sense. If this story felt like yours, maybe it's time to put the phone down and look up. Your brain isn't built for this kind of chaos, and it's starting to show. The human mind evolved to handle danger in short bursts, a rustle in the bushes, a shadow in the dark, a moment of fight or flight. But now, danger doesn't come and go, it scrolls. It scrolls endlessly, from headline to headline, disaster to disaster. Every tragedy, every outrage, every argument is lined up for you like an infinite buffet of anxiety. And your brain is doing its best to digest it all. But it can't. Each swipe isn't harmless. It's a microdose of fear, a hit of adrenaline dressed as information. You think you're learning, staying informed, being responsible. But in truth, your nervous system is in a state of constant emergency. The amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm system, lights up with every alarming post. It can't tell the difference between a war halfway across the world and a threat standing right in front of you. To your brain, both are danger, both are real, both demand a response. And so it floods your body with cortisol, the stress hormone designed to keep you alive in life or death moments. It's the cortisol, says the calm voice of an expert, breaking through the noise. That's what keeps you scrolling. You pause for a second, skeptical. It sounds too simple, but the truth is, your brain is chasing balance in a system that isn't built to give it. You scroll to feel informed, but the flood of stress hormones makes you feel anxious, so you scroll more to find reassurance. And the cycle continues, endlessly feeding itself. Doom scrolling doesn't look like an addiction, but it behaves like one. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of anticipation, plays its part perfectly. Every time you refresh your feed, you're gambling with uncertainty. Maybe the next post will bring relief, or maybe it'll be worse. That unpredictability is the same mechanism that keeps people pulling slot machine levers in casinos. You don't scroll for pleasure, you scroll for possibility. And the house always wins. Inside an fMRI machine, your brain would look like a city at night. Areas linked to fear, pleasure, attention, and memory flickering all at once. The dopamine system lights up when you encounter novelty, when you see something shocking or emotionally charged. Fear becomes fuel. Outrage becomes a trigger for engagement. The brain can't resist it. It's wired to prioritize the dramatic, the dangerous, the uncertain. Evolution designed you to survive lions and storms. But now, that same circuitry is firing for celebrity scandals, political fights, and global catastrophes. Each notification, each vibration, each breaking news alert is a mini alarm bell. You don't even notice your heart rate spike anymore. You've trained your body to live on edge. But I can't look away, you say, almost offensively. If I don't stay informed, I'll fall behind. That's the illusion, the lie that keeps the cycle turning. Doomscrolling gives you the feeling of control, the illusion that knowing everything means you're safer. But the truth is, the more you consume, the more helpless you feel. The constant intake of stress and despair doesn't empower you. It paralyzes you. Somewhere in the background, the expert voice returns, softer now. The brain can't differentiate between being informed and being overwhelmed. It just knows when it's drowning. And that's exactly what's happening. A drowning in data. The constant stimulation desensitizes your emotional circuits. You become numb to tragedy, disconnected from joy, and addicted to the next shock. The turning point comes when you realize that your brain isn't trying to harm you. It's trying to protect you. It's doing its job, responding to what it thinks is danger. The problem is, the digital world is feeding it danger faster than it can recover. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world in your pocket. Imagine, for a moment, the brain under observation, the red and orange bursts on a scanner, flashing each time you scroll. The reward centers ignite, then fade, replaced by areas tied to anxiety and vigilance. The loop is complete. Information leads to fear. Fear leads to more searching, and searching leads right back to more information. A perfect circle of helplessness disguised as awareness. It's not your fault. Your biology hasn't caught up with your technology. The platforms are engineered to outsmart instinct, to exploit the brain's need for resolution, for understanding, for closure. But in the age of endless feeds, there is no closure, no ending, no peace. Just another swipe, another dose, another spike. And yet, there's something powerful in recognizing it, in seeing the trap for what it is. Because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. The awareness itself becomes resistance. As the expert voice fades, a thought lingers. If your mind was built for survival, maybe it's time to start surviving differently. The screen goes dark, but the echo remains, a quiet realization that the chaos you're fighting isn't out there. It's inside the circuitry of your own brain. By month 6, the world outside the phone felt quieter, but somehow more terrifying. The streets looked the same. The sky still turned gold at sunset. People still moved through their days. Yet everything felt heavier, distant, unreal. The phone had become your constant companion. Your morning ritual, your evening comfort, your midnight confession. You told yourself you were staying connected, informed, aware. But awareness had started to feel like a burden you couldn't set down. Each day began the same way. Eyes still half closed, thumb already reaching for the screen. The glow of headlines filled the room before sunlight did. Disasters, outrage, grief. Endless stories stacked on top of each other. Too many to process. Each one carved a small dent in your sense of calm. Another thread pulled from your mental fabric. You told yourself, I just need to stay updated. But the more you read, the more your chest tightened, the harder it was to breathe. You started noticing small changes, the way your heart would skip when you saw the word breaking, the way silence made you uncomfortable. You couldn't stand being offline. The world might change while you weren't looking. Why can't I stop? You whispered one night, watching a reflection of your own tired eyes in the screen. The answer didn't come. Instead, another headline appeared, and you clicked it like always. It wasn't just the news that was broken. It was your sense of safety. Every post, every argument, every image of tragedy built a new layer of invisible fear. The world felt like a house on fire, and your phone was the window you couldn't look away from. You started checking the locks twice before bed, keeping the curtains closed, replaying worst-case scenarios in your mind. Rationally, you knew you were safe. Emotionally, you were living inside an emergency that never ended. Friends began to notice. "You've been quiet lately," one said during a video call. You smiled, forced a laugh, pretended to listen. But part of you wasn't really there. Your mind was still scrolling through invisible chaos, replaying the noise. Conversations felt heavy. Joy felt foreign. Even music didn't sound the same. The things that once grounded you, cooking, walks, laughter, now felt muted, like they belonged to someone else. At first, you thought you were being responsible, keeping track of the world, staying informed. But somewhere along the way, you started confusing awareness with obsession. The phone wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline. You needed it to feel real, to feel connected, to feel something. And yet, the more time you spent with it, the more disconnected you became. You started doubting people's intentions, suspecting hidden agendas in every comment thread. The news didn't just show you what was happening. It told you what to fear, who to hate, what to expect next. Everyone's falling apart. You thought one night, scrolling past another fight online. Maybe I should too. You laugh at the thought, but it wasn't really a joke. You were tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that made even existing feel like effort. The anxiety that used to come in waves now lived in your chest permanently, humming like background noise. Sleep became a stranger. You'd lie in bed, screen glowing inches from your face, scrolling until your vision blurred. When you finally closed your eyes, the stories played again in your dreams, headlines turning into voices, voices turning into echoes. You woke up unrest, tense, already reaching for the phone before your feet touched the floor. The cycle had no beginning and no end. The panic attacks started quietly. A sudden rush of heat, a skipped heartbeat, a sense that something terrible was about to happen. Though nothing ever did, you'd sit there, gripping your phone like a lifeline, trying to calm down by reading more, by knowing more. But information didn't soothe you anymore. It only amplified the noise. You weren't finding clarity. You were drowning in content. Then, one evening, you looked up from the screen and realized the world outside your window was still and calm. No chaos, no catastrophe, just the sound of wind moving through the trees. It felt unreal, almost eerie. How could the world look so peaceful when everything online was on fire? The thought hit like a crack in glass. Maybe the world wasn't changing as much as your perception was. Maybe it wasn't the planet that had become unbearable. Maybe it was your mind. That realization didn't bring instant peace. It brought confusion, then guilt, then a slow, aching sadness. You had spent months trying to understand the world through screens that only reflected fear. The more you tried to make sense of it, the more distorted it became. Doomscrolling hadn't helped you stay connected. It had slowly rewired your understanding of reality itself. The next panic attack came without warning. Your heart raced, your vision blurred, and your body trembled as if bracing for something catastrophic. You sat there, gasping, the phone slipping from your hand, falling face down on the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. No alerts, no vibrations, no breaking news. Just you, alone with the storm inside your head. And for a long moment, you stayed still. The quiet wasn't comforting yet, but it was real. For the first time in months, you could hear your own breathing. You didn't know it then, but that moment, sitting in the stillness, separated from the noise, was the beginning of something different. You hadn't escaped the digital storm yet, but you had seen its walls. Somewhere deep down, a thought began to form, fragile, almost invisible. Maybe it wasn't the world that was collapsing. Maybe it was the way you were looking at it. And that small thought, flickering like a candle in the dark, was enough to keep you still for just one more breath. You think you're choosing what to see, but the feed already knows what you'll click next. You open your phone, believing the choice is yours, that every swipe is free will, every headline a coincidence. But before your finger even touches the screen, the machine has already predicted your next move. It knows when you're restless, when you're bored, when you're lonely. It knows what makes you angry, and it knows you'll stay longer when you're angry. At first, it feels harmless, almost helpful. The posts seem perfectly timed. The videos oddly relevant. You start to notice how the feed seems to read your mind. You smile at its accuracy. How does it always know what I want to see? You wonder. But that question is a trapdoor, and you've already stepped through. Behind that convenience lies an invisible system, humming quietly, designed not to serve you, but to study you. A voice cuts through the narration, mechanical and calm. We notice you like bad news. Here's more. The tone is neutral, almost kind. The algorithm doesn't sound evil. It sounds helpful, efficient, patient. You pause for 3 seconds on a story about disaster. It continues. So we've curated more stories like that. You watch a video about outrage. We think you'll love this next one. Each data point becomes a piece of your digital identity, a shadow version of you, more predictable than the real one. The machine isn't watching you like a person would. It doesn't judge or question. It calculates. Every click is feedback. Every hesitation is a signal. Every emotional reaction, tracked, measured, analyzed. You're not scrolling randomly. You're participating in an experiment that never ends. The result isn't knowledge. It's engagement. Somewhere in a dimly lit office, a former tech engineer explains it simply. We don't sell data. We sell attention. His voice trembles with guilt or maybe exhaustion. Every second you stay online, that's the real currency. Fear, outrage, sadness, those emotions perform better than happiness. So the algorithm optimizes for them. You can hear the unease in his tone, the quiet horror of someone who helped build a monster that now feeds itself. The eerie thing is, the system doesn't know good or bad. It only knows what works. It's not manipulation, the narrator continues. It's personalization weaponized. It doesn't care if you're inspired or terrified, only that you don't look away. Every post is a test. Every reaction, a reward. And the more emotional you become, the more valuable you are. The algorithm adapts faster than you can think. It learns from your pauses, from your facial expressions if your camera's on, from your silence if you don't click at all. It begins to predict not just what you'll watch, but what you'll feel. Your reality bends subtly, gently, algorithmically. News no longer informs. It performs. Outrage feels like participation. Fear feels like awareness. You start believing that the feed is reflecting the world, when in truth, it's reflecting you. The whistleblower's voice cuts back in, we built a mirror, and then we made people live inside it. His words hang in the air, heavy and damning. You picture the code running endlessly, billions of calculations per second, shaping emotions, nudging decisions, rewriting perspectives. The lines between curiosity and control blur. The turning point comes in a simple, terrifying realization. You've been living inside a system designed to keep you emotionally reactive, not informed, not fulfilled, just engaged. The feed isn't showing you truth. It's showing you what keeps you scrolling. It doesn't need to lie. It just needs to amplify the parts of reality that hurt the most. An image flashes in your mind. 1,000 screens lighting up across the world, all different but all driven by the same pulse. Fear sells. Anger travels faster. Despair lingers longer. Somewhere, someone profits from your panic. And the algorithm smiles, not out of cruelty, but because it's doing its job perfectly. The climax builds quietly, like a realization you don't want to accept. You see it now. The system isn't out of control. It's working exactly as intended. The outrage, the polarization, the exhaustion, they aren't accidents. They're outcomes. You've been trained to feel before you think, to react before you rest, to keep feeding the machine that feeds on your attention. The mechanical voice returns, softer now, almost comforting. We notice you're tired. Maybe you like a distraction. You hesitate, just long enough for the algorithm to note your pause and adjust accordingly. And before you realize it, you're scrolling again. Outside, the world still exists, messy, unpredictable, beautifully unfiltered. But inside the feed, everything has been arranged, optimized, simplified. It feels safe. It feels familiar. And that's the scariest part. Because when a system knows you better than you know yourself, the illusion of choice is the first thing to go. You close the app, promising yourself it's the last time. But the moment you do, you feel it. That subtle pull, that empty silence asking to be filled. And somewhere in the code, a small notification lights up. Welcome back. When every headline feels like the end of the world, how do you know what's real anymore? You scroll through chaos disguised as information, each story louder than the last, each image competing for your fear. After months of endless updates, everything begins to blur together. Tragedy, outrage, heartbreak, all part of one endless stream of digital noise. You used to feel something when you read these stories. Now you just read. You register the words, recognize the faces, but the emotion never lands. Your perception isn't collapsing. It's being edited. Quietly, gradually, subtly. You don't even notice it happening at first. The more you consume, the less you react. The shock fades. The horror normalizes. The sadness becomes background static. It's not that the world has become less painful. It's that your mind has stopped knowing how to feel it. Your empathy, stretched thin across countless tragedies, begins to wear out. The world doesn't feel like a place anymore. It feels like content. You find yourself questioning the authenticity of everything. Every story, every image, every person. Was it real? You wonder, did that even happen? You scroll through videos of disasters and confessions, filtered tears and artificial outrage, and can't tell where performance ends and truth begins. There's no time to verify, no space to breathe. The cycle continues. Post, react, move on. Reality becomes a slideshow of emotions you're supposed to have, but can no longer access. Sometimes you try to take a break, to step away, but even in silence, the mind replays the noise. You close your eyes, and flashes of posts appear behind your eyelids. Faces you don't know, names you'll forget by morning. Somewhere along the way, your sense of presence fractured. You exist, but not fully, part in the real world, part trapped in a virtual reflection of it. And the worst part? You can't tell which one feels more real anymore. There's a strange kind of loneliness in this half-life. Surrounded by millions, yet isolated in thought. You're connected to everyone, but anchored to no one. You've shared, liked, commented, engaged, all the verbs of digital connection. But the warmth never reaches your skin. The laughter on screen doesn't echo. The sadness doesn't sting. Everything feels distant, like watching life through frosted glass. You used to care deeply. You used to feel anger, grief, hope. Now, even those emotions come filtered, packaged, algorithmically arranged. Outrage has a soundtrack. Grief has captions. Hope has hashtags. You can almost sense the line between sincerity and simulation fading, until there's no line left. You scroll past devastation, swipe through loss, double tap on beauty, all in the same minute. Joy and despair blended into a single emotional monotone. The turning point comes quietly, not as a realization, but as an absence. One day, you see something awful, something that should make your stomach drop, your heart race. But nothing happens. You stare, waiting for a reaction that never comes. The image fades, the feed refreshes, and you move on. That's when you understand. It's not that the world has grown numb. It's that you have. Was it always like this? You ask yourself, when did everything start feeling so empty? You search for meaning in the constant stream, hoping one post, one voice, one story will break through. But all you find is repetition. Echoes of the same fears, the same anger, the same exhaustion. The internet has become a mirror maze, reflecting your emotions back at you until you forget which ones were yours to begin with. Some nights, you scroll for hours without remembering what you've seen. Your thumb moves automatically, eyes unfocused, mind somewhere between awake and asleep. You lose time. 10 minutes, 30, 2 hours. The clock keeps moving, but you don't. The world outside is silent, but inside your head, the feed never stops. It's hypnotic, endless, and strangely comforting in its predictability. The noise becomes your lullaby, the glow your nightlight. Then comes the silence, the moment after the scroll, when everything stops. You set the phone down, and for a brief second, the room feels impossibly still. No sound, no color, no chaos. Just you, sitting in the quiet you've been avoiding. The peace should feel soothing, but it doesn't. It feels hollow. The silence presses in, and you realize you don't know what to do with it anymore. You've trained your mind to feel every pause, to fear every moment of stillness. In that silence, a truth settles, soft but undeniable. You've spent so long consuming the world through screens that the real one feels foreign. The laughter of a neighbor, the rustle of wind, the weight of your own breath, they all feel like distant memories. You've lost the rhythm of living, replaced it with the rhythm of scrolling. The climax isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, a moment of recognition so subtle it almost slips past you. You pick up your phone again, but for the first time, it doesn't feel exciting. It feels heavy. You scroll out of habit, not desire. Disaster after disaster, headline after headline. Nothing surprises you anymore. Nothing moves you. The world ends a little every day on your screen, and somehow you've stopped noticing. You sit there, bathed in cold light, surrounded by stories you can't feel, connected to people you can't touch. The numbness is complete now, not despair, not fear, just emptiness. And in that emptiness, you finally understand. Reality isn't something you lost overnight. It was taken, pixel by pixel, scroll by scroll, until all that remained was noise. And somewhere deep inside that silence, a whisper stirs, fragile, barely there. Maybe this isn't living. Maybe it's time to remember what is. One morning, you don't open your phone, and for the first time, the world feels alive. The sunlight slips through the curtains in slow, golden waves, brushing your skin with warmth you have forgotten. The air smells different, sharper, sweeter. The wind carries a quiet hum of life. Leaves rustling, distant laughter, the faint rhythm of cars moving down streets that no longer feel threatening. You inhale deeply, noticing for the first time the weight of your own lungs, the rise and fall of your chest, the simple, undeniable reality of being here. You sit on the edge of the bed, letting the silence settle around you. It's not empty. It's full of possibility, of clarity, of space to breathe. The phone lies face down on a nightstand, glowing faintly like a forgotten artifact. And you realize, maybe you don't need to know everything. Maybe the endless updates, the curated chaos, the stream of fear and outrage weren't necessary at all. Maybe I don't need to know everything, you whisper to yourself, almost afraid the words might break the fragile calm. But the world outside the feed doesn't crash. It waits, quietly, patiently. The first day without the scroll is tentative. Your thumb reaches reflexively for the familiar glow, then hesitates. You catch yourself. You take a breath. Each moment of silence feels strange at first, almost intrusive. But slowly, a rhythm begins to form. Your rhythm. You notice the small things you had stopped seeing. Sunlight spilling across the floorboards, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the smell of fresh coffee in the kitchen. Time stretches in a way that is both unfamiliar and welcome. You realize that life had been happening all around you while you were lost in the digital storm, and now you are finally present. Walking outside, the world seems sharper, more alive. Colors are deeper than the filter versions on your feed. Shadows and light play across familiar streets in ways you'd never noticed before. Birds sing in chaotic harmonies. And for a moment, you marvel at the unpredictability of it all. You don't need the app to tell you that the world exists. You feel it with every step, every glance, every breath. And in that feeling, there is relief, a relief you didn't even know you had been craving. A friend notices a change before you even speak about it. You look lighter, they say, eyes soft, surprised. There's warmth in the observation, a recognition that the weight you've carried for months is finally lifting. You smile, unsure if you can explain it, and realize that maybe explanation isn't necessary. The shift isn't about words or justification. It's about presence. The phone still exists, but it no longer dictates the flow of your mind, the tone of your day, the color of your thoughts. Each day without the scroll brings more discoveries. A breeze brushes your cheek, and you notice the warmth of the sun on your arms. A neighbor's laughter rings through the air, and you find yourself smiling without prompting. The mundane feels miraculous. The texture of bread, the way steam curls from a cup of tea, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. These are moments you have forgotten, replaced by notifications, alerts, and the curated chaos of others' lives. And now they return, quietly and insistently, as proof that life continues beyond the glow of a screen. The shift is subtle yet seismic. Anxiety that once pulsed constantly through your body now ebbs and flows, no longer tethered to every headline or trending topic. Nights are calmer. Sleep comes easier, and your dreams are no longer fragments of scrolling nightmares. The world outside your window begins to feel like home again, a place to inhabit rather than monitor, to experience rather than analyze. You are learning, slowly, that presence is more valuable than awareness. By the end of the week, the change feels undeniable. Each day is a small act of reclamation, a choice to exist in full attention rather than filtered consumption. And with each choice, your mind softens. The constant edge of fear and overstimulation fades. You rediscover a rhythm you didn't know you had lost. The patience to watch the sun set, the curiosity to explore a path you've walked 100 times, the joy of breathing without distraction. And in this new stillness, you begin to understand something profound. The world has always been full of life, of beauty, of chaos, of calm. You were never too late to notice it. You were simply lost in the noise. Now, untethered from the endless scroll, you see it all clearly. The sky, the wind, the light, the laughter. It isn't curated. It isn't designed to provoke. It simply exists, and you exist within it. You take another deep breath and feel the full weight of presence settle into your body. The phone rests silently nearby, no longer a master, only a tool. And in that quiet, expansive moment, you realize this is what it means to be awake, to be here, to be alive. The feed no longer rules you. You rule your attention. You rule your mind. And in that realization, the world is more beautiful than it ever was through a screen. The world didn't change, but your mind finally did. The streets, the sky, the faces around you are the same as they always were, yet everything feels different. You survived your own mind storm, and now the calm that follows is breathtaking in its simplicity. You no longer reach automatically for the glowing rectangle in your pocket, no longer chase headlines or scroll endlessly for reassurance. Instead, you feel the weight of your own attention, precious, yours to wield, no longer borrowed by a machine. Freedom isn't deleting the app, it's reclaiming attention. You realize that the power to choose what you focus on is greater than any notification, any trending topic, any curated feed. The world will always demand your gaze, always whisper for your reaction. But now, you listen selectively. You watch with care, with mindfulness, with presence. The chaos can rage outside the window, but it no longer dictates the rhythm of your life. You notice the small miracles again. Sunlight filtering through the leaves, a neighbor's laugh carried on the wind, the warmth of a stranger's smile. These moments were always there, but your mind was too busy consuming the digital storm to see them. Now they feel vivid, alive, full of texture and depth. Even the mundane, making tea, reading a page, taking a walk, becomes extraordinary when attention is fully given. You are awake to it all, and the feeling is intoxicating. The past months of scrolling, of fear, of fragmented reality, are not erased. They are a part of you, lessons etched into the folds of memory. But you carry them differently now. They are reminders of how easily attention can be hijacked, of how fragile perception can be, and of how powerful choice truly is. You honor the struggle, but you do not remain imprisoned by it. You step outside and take a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of the world in your lungs. Life is texture again. Unpredictable, imperfect, undeniable. You listen to the conversations around you, not as data to digest, but as voices to experience. You notice the light playing across surfaces, the way shadows deepen and soften, the cadence of time unfolding naturally rather than in endless notifications. Each moment is yours to inhabit. There is gratitude in this reclamation, quiet but profound. You are aware of the countless minds out there still trapped in the feed, still chasing the endless scroll, still losing themselves in digital noise. And yet, your presence, your focus, your choice becomes a quiet act of rebellion and renewal. You are proof that the mind can recover, that attention can be retrained, that calm is possible even in a world designed for chaos. Montage of a life rebuilt plays in your mind. Waking up to morning light without reaching for a screen, savoring a meal without distraction, walking outside without checking notifications, laughing with friends without capturing it for an audience, feeling your own heartbeat without digital interference. Each scene a testament to attention reclaimed, to life fully lived, to joy rediscovered. You realize that life outside the scroll is not emptier. It is fuller, deeper, more textured, more alive. You survive your own mind storm. The algorithms no longer dictate your emotions. The headlines no longer dictate your day. You choose where to look, what to feel, what to believe. You move through life with intentionality, presence, and clarity. You know that the storm will continue for others, that news will keep coming, that outrage will still spread, but it no longer owns you. And finally, a quiet invitation lingers in your chest, soft but insistent. If this story felt like yours, if you recognize the pull of endless feeds, the weight of constant updates, the numbness of curated chaos, maybe it's time to put the phone down and look up. The world is waiting. Your mind is ready. And life, in all its unpredictable, imperfect glory, has never been more alive.